Well, the state is set to execute Kevin Underwood today for brutally murdering his 10-year-old neighbor back in 2006.
KOCO does have a team at the state penitentiary waiting for news of Underwood's death. KOCO's Colby Terrell runs us through the case and the final appeal.
Although I do not want to die, I recognize that I deserve to for what I did.
This story contains disturbing details that may be difficult to hear. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. Imagine a little girl, 10 years old with copper-red hair and a shy, sweet smile, knocking on her neighbor's door to pet a rat. It was a scene that had played out many times before. But on that day in April 2006, her trust led her into a trap that no child should ever face. Inside that modest apartment in Purcell, Oklahoma, a 26-year-old man named Kevin Ray Underwood was waiting. He wasn't just planning a murder. He had a hacksaw, barbecue skewers, a plastic container, and fantasies so dark they stunned even seasoned FBI agents. What he confessed would later be described as one of the most horrifying crimes in American history. A crime so grotesque that police officers involved in the case had to undergo therapy afterward. Kevin didn't just want to kill Jamie Rose Bolin, he wanted to decapitate her, drink her blood, rape her corpse, and cook her flesh. And then pretend to help search for her body while it lay hidden in his closet just a few feet away. Today we'll walk through the unimaginable case of Jamie Rose Bolin. We'll look not only at what happened, but at the signs that were missed in the system that allowed a predator to live across the walkway from a trusting child. Let me tell you about Jamie. Jamie Rose Bolin was born on August 7, 1995 in Edmond, Oklahoma. Her father, Curtis Lynn Bolin, and her mother, Jennifer Ann Fox, named her Jamie Rose, a name that would one day be spoken with heartbreak across the nation. From the moment she entered the world, Jamie carried a light with her. She had copper-red hair that shone like sunlight and blue eyes so bright they reminded people of the sky after rain. Her cheeks were dotted with freckles, and her smile could soften even the hardest of hearts. Her family lovingly called her Copper Top. But Jamie's beauty wasn't just skin deep. She was a gentle child, shy, but deeply kind. Her uncle would later recall that Jamie never spoke badly about anyone. Even in a world where children could sometimes be cruel, Jamie stood out for her compassion. She believed in the goodness of people, and that belief, as innocent and pure as it was, would one day be her undoing. Jamie loved the simple joys of life. She adored singing and dancing, often making up cheerleading routines to perform for her family in the living room. She joined the Girl Scouts, bonded with her best friend Brittany over breakfast at school, and treasured every moment riding her bike or sewing with her dad. She loved playing checkers, and she beat her father so often he joked about never winning again. She was just starting to become herself, Curtis would later say. And it was true. At 10 years old, Jamie was standing at the edge of who she would become, bright, creative, full of dreams, and loved beyond measure. What makes her story so crushing is not just how she died, but who she was before it all happened. A girl whose life had barely begun, a child who trusted too easily, a daughter who only wanted to be loved. But to fully understand Jamie's story, we must look at the family that shaped her world, and the fracture that would change everything.
Jamie Rose Bolin came from a family that, like many others, faced its share of struggles. When Jamie was just 2 years old, her parents divorced. Her mother, Jennifer, left their home in Edmond and moved to Guthrie, Oklahoma, battling an addiction that would keep her from being present in Jamie's life for several crucial years. Jamie stayed with her father, Curtis Bolin, a hard-working man who carried the quiet weight of raising a daughter alone. He became both mother and father, protector and provider. Though their life wasn't easy, Curtis made sure that Jamie never felt unloved. He filled her world with as much joy as he could. Movie nights, checkers, riding bikes. For a long time, it was just the two of them against the world. Meanwhile, Jennifer was fighting her own demons. Addiction had taken a toll on her, but in 2005, after years of struggle, she made the courageous decision to get clean and rebuild her relationship with the daughter she had missed so much. Jamie was overjoyed at the idea of reconnecting with her mother. They made plans, they talked on the phone. An Easter weekend visit was just days away. It was supposed to be a new beginning. That same year, Curtis and Jamie moved from Dibble to Purcell, a quiet town in central Oklahoma. Their new home was an upstairs apartment in a modest housing complex called Purcell Park, located on North 8th Avenue. The move represented a fresh chapter for both of them. Jamie was excited. New home, new school, new friends. She quickly bonded with a classmate named Brittany, who would later describe Jamie as like a sister. But what Curtis couldn't have known, what no one could have known, was that right across the walkway, on the ground floor of the same complex, lived a man who had been quietly nurturing monstrous fantasies. A man who had watched Jamie, who had befriended her, who had waited. And on April 12, 2006, he would act. April 12, 2006, began like any other day for Jamie Rose Bolin. She woke up in her upstairs apartment in Purcell, put on a pink shirt, and headed to school. She was especially excited. Her mother, Jennifer, would be visiting that weekend for Easter. At school, she talked with her best friend, Brittany, during 6th period, smiling, unaware that it would be the last ordinary moment of her life. That afternoon, Jamie stopped by the local library to play with a friend. When she returned home, she realized she had forgotten her keys. It was a warm day, and after biking back and forth to retrieve them, she came home sweaty and changed into a blue t-shirt. Then, she headed back downstairs. Her neighbor, Kevin Ray Underwood, was waiting. Kevin was 26 years old, a withdrawn man who spent most of his time online, often exploring disturbing internet forums, including those centered on cannibalism and violent fantasies. He lived alone with a pet rat named Freya. In the weeks prior, he had befriended Jamie, often letting her pet the rat or watch cartoons in his apartment. She thought he was harmless, just a quiet neighbor with a strange pet. That day, Kevin greeted her in the walkway. "Hi, Jamie. Want to come in and see Freya?" Jamie stepped inside without hesitation. They sat on the floor, watching SpongeBob SquarePants, chatting. But inside Kevin's mind, a storm was raging. He had spent months preparing for this moment, buying a hacksaw, barbecue skewers, duct tape, and a large plastic container. He had mapped it all out, the seduction, the violence, the aftermath. He wrestled with himself for 15 minutes before standing up and grabbing a wooden cutting board. He raised it and hesitated, raised it again. Then, finally, he struck Jamie in the head. But unlike his fantasies, she didn't pass out. She screamed, "I'm sorry," and tried to run. Kevin panicked. He struck her again and again. She pleaded, "God, forgive me. Let me go. I won't tell anyone." But Kevin was beyond stopping. He covered her mouth and nose with his hands, pressing her to the floor until she went still. When she stirred again, he repeated the process. twice. Finally, he sealed her mouth and nose with duct tape. Jamie Rose Bolin, 10 years old, died alone and terrified, in the home of someone she thought she could trust. What followed was beyond comprehension. Kevin dragged her lifeless body into the bathroom, attempting to stay, but Kevin had made a mistake. And the next day, the FBI would catch it. What happened next would reveal the full horror of what Jamie had suffered and the depravity of the man who took her life. As the sun rose on April 13th, 2006, Jamie was still missing. Her father, Curtis, and the entire neighborhood searched desperately. Police joined in. An Amber Alert was issued by evening. But no one could have imagined how close she was. Just a few feet away, sealed in a plastic container inside Kevin Underwood's closet. Kevin tried to maintain his mask. He approached Curtis during the search, offering false comfort. He lit incense in his apartment to hide the smell of blood. He deleted disturbing files from his computer. On the surface, he acted like any concerned neighbor. But something slipped. During a routine roadblock near the complex, Kevin and his father were stopped by FBI agent Craig Overby. Kevin casually mentioned that the Amber Alert had gotten it wrong, that Jamie was last seen wearing a blue shirt, not a pink one. That single detail hadn't yet been made public. The agent took note. Kevin agreed to accompany Overby to the station. During questioning, he insisted he had nothing to do with Jamie's disappearance. But when agents later visited his apartment and noticed blood in the bathtub, suspicion became certainty. They asked about a large plastic container taped shut in the closet. Kevin claimed it held comic books, protected from moisture. Then, without warning, Kevin broke. "Go ahead," he said. "Arrest me. She's in there. I hit her and chopped her up." Inside the bin, investigators found Jamie's lifeless body, wrapped in bags, hidden beneath her blue shirt. Her disassembled bicycle parts were stashed nearby. In the hours that followed, Kevin gave one of the most horrifying taped confessions in U.S. criminal history. He described in chilling detail how he planned to lure a child, tie her up, show her pornography, rape her, and then kill her slowly. He talked about barbecuing flesh, about saving the skull, about making the head watch him from his desk. His fantasies were so depraved that FBI agents were forced to seek counseling afterward. Kevin Ray Underwood was charged with first-degree murder. At trial in 2008, his defense didn't argue innocence. Instead, they pleaded mental illness, asking for life in prison. But the jury had heard enough. It took them just 23 minutes to deliver a guilty verdict. The murder of Jamie Rose Bolin sent shockwaves far beyond Purcell, Oklahoma. It wasn't just the brutality of the crime. It was the betrayal. A quiet little girl, known and loved by neighbors, was murdered in the very place she felt safest. By someone who lived just steps away. The community was devastated. In the days following her disappearance, neighbors stood in silence in the walkway outside Kevin's apartment, some holding candles, others weeping, not yet knowing the truth. When it was revealed that Jamie had been there all along, inside that plastic bin, the grief turned to rage. Parents hugged their children tighter. Schools held assemblies about stranger danger and online predators. Churches lit candles in Jamie's memory. Vigils were held across Oklahoma. People who had never met Jamie mourned her as if she were their own. But perhaps the most heartbreaking responses came from those who loved her most. Her family, particularly her father Curtis, sat through the trial with a kind of quiet endurance that few could imagine. When Kevin's confession was played in court, Curtis and his brother chose to step out. "I don't want those pictures in my mind," Curtis later said. "I want to remember the good times. That's what's kept us going." Jamie's uncle, Mark Childs, expressed the deep pain the family carried. "I think he was just evil. Not sick, just evil." During the sentencing phase, the jury showed visible emotion. One juror even looked at the family as the verdict was read, mouthing, "I'm sorry." It was a small gesture, but in a world that had failed to protect Jamie, it mattered. In the years that followed, Jamie's story became a rallying cry for child protection advocates. Though no major law was passed in her name, her case was cited repeatedly in discussions about early warning signs of predatory behavior, particularly the danger of minimizing harmless eccentricities in adults around children. Kevin Underwood's blog posts, comments at work, and obsession with dark online material had all been dismissed until it was too late. For many, Jamie's story became a symbol of the importance of listening to instinct, of never ignoring the quiet unease that something may be wrong. But her story didn't end with the courtroom. What would you do if a child told you they were scared of someone but couldn't explain why? Would you listen? Would you look closer? Jamie Rose Bolin never had the chance to grow up, to become the dancer she dreamed of, to beat her father at checkers one more time. She never got to ride her bike down the hill that spring or celebrate Easter with her mother. She was silenced by someone she trusted. And her silence must speak for others now. Jamie's death is not just a tragedy, it's a reminder that predators don't always lurk in shadows. Sometimes they smile. Sometimes they live across the walkway. Sometimes they own a pet rat and seem quiet, even harmless. We must remain vigilant, not paranoid, but present. We must teach our children to trust their instincts and never fear speaking up. We must, as a society, take disturbing behavior seriously before it becomes deadly. Jamie Rose was buried beside her mother, Jennifer, who passed away in 2023, still grieving the daughter she never truly got to say goodbye to. Two lives forever linked by love and loss. And while justice has finally been carried out, closure is something her family may never truly feel. But what we can do, what we must do, is remember her, say her name, tell her story, warn others, protect the vulnerable. Because Jamie Rose Bolin wasn't just a victim. She was a daughter, a friend, a light, and that light deserves never to be forgotten. If this story moved you, share it, talk about it. Let it be a warning and a tribute for Jamie.